Council to order and ask that we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Norma, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Here.
And Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Here.
We do have everybody present. The first item on the agenda is presentations, and that would, item number 3 would be the monthly report by Coolidge Youth Coalition. I see Sharon out there. Please step forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, and members of the council. My name is Sharon Boyd, and I'm the director of the Drug-Free Communities Program for the Coolidge Youth Coalition. The Drug-Free Communities Program is in year 6, after being awarded a second DFC grant in the amount of $625,000 from the Office of National Drug Control Policy. CYC is a 501c3 nonprofit whose vision and mission is to promote healthy and drug-free lifestyles for all youth and families in Coolidge. We do this by collaborating with our partners and stakeholders, such as Coolidge Police Department, Coolidge Unified School District, City of Coolidge, Pinal County Attorney's Office, and many more. Once again, tonight, I come before you with an attitude of gratitude. We have a lot to celebrate going into 2015. The 2014 Arizona Youth Survey, which is our core measurement survey for youth substance abuse in Coolidge, tells us that the Drug Severity Index for Coolidge, which looks at the number of youth using drugs, the frequency of that use, and the harm of the substances being used, has dropped in 2014 to a DSI of low. This drug severity index has come down from a high level in 2009 when our DFC program was funded to a moderate level in 2012, and now in 2014 Coolidge has dropped its youth drug use level to low. In addition, since the DFC program started in 2009, Coolidge has reduced our youth drug use across the board on all drugs by 40%. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just data or statistics that I have just given you. These are lives. This is our kids, our nieces, our nephews, and our grandkids, and most importantly, our future. And I want to tell you something else. Most of our Coolidge kids are not doing drugs. They are simply not interested. They understand that drugs can hurt them. Our youth do not want to risk their parents' disapproval. And a majority of our kids simply think drugs are morally wrong. Now, I want to tell you that we still have miles and miles to go before we sleep in our fight to keep our kids safe and to keep them drug-free. Marijuana. Arizona currently is a medical marijuana state, and we have the legalization of recreational marijuana slated to be voted on in the 2016 election. Some red flags. Our data shows us that 1 out of 6 Pinal County youth who use marijuana started using in elementary school. 84% of Arizona youth who used marijuana started using before they could legally drive a car. CYC, DFC, and our CYC SATIs will be presenting regularly in front of you on what we are doing to educate Coolidge on the dangers of youth marijuana drug use. One thing I will tell you about marijuana tonight is that almost 80% of our kids that use marijuana are getting it from the Friends and Family Plan. Nationally, the stats tell us that 156 million adult workers in the United States use marijuana before they go to work every day. CYC has an ongoing marijuana prevention campaign, and we will continue to educate you and our youth on the dangers of marijuana use for our youth. Alcohol. Alcohol continues to be the #1 drug of choice for our Coolidge kids who are using. Once again, our youth are also obtaining alcohol from the Friends and Family Plan. 20% of our Coolidge youth gave money to someone to buy them alcohol. CYC has put in place for the past 3 years now our Tipsy, Buzzed, and Blitzen Holiday DUI and Designated Driver campaign in partnership with the Coolidge Police Department to include stickers which were placed on the liquor glass cases in local Coolidge businesses that sell alcohol, warning adults who buy, sell, or give alcohol to minors that they face criminal consequences. CYC will expand this sticker shock campaign to include prom, graduation, and the summer months this year. RX, prescription pill abuse among youth. Friends are providing friends with RX pills in Coolidge among our youth. They are getting pills from their friends. CYC has seen a dramatic decrease in the number of pills that our youth are obtaining from their homes, dropping from 30% to only 8% who now obtain pills from home. Coolidge, we are doing a great job of educating our parents and caregivers the importance of disposing your unused RX meds. CYC will continue to promote our permanent RX drug dump box right here in the Coolidge Police Station, open 24/7 to dispose of your unused medication. We, as a community, need to reinforce the dangers of RX abuse among our youth, because this same RX drug abuse is getting some of our kids hooked on pills, and as a result of this, they then move on to heroin. So let's not take our eyes off the prize here, and that is, if we reduce our kids' addiction to RX pills, we knock heroin out of the ballgame. And Coolidge is doing a great job of that. That is our goal. And CYC will continue to educate and work with all of our partners and stakeholders on this RX initiative. In closing tonight, I would like to speak directly to our Coolidge parents, caregivers, and grandparents. Congratulations. You are doing a great job. You are first in line. You are the first line of defense against drug use for your kids. Your kids care what you think. Coolidge Youth Coalition and the Drug-Free Communities Program are here to help you. So please let us know what we can do to help you, what you need, and what you would like from Coolidge Youth Coalition in the future. We support you, we congratulate you, and most importantly, let's do this together. Let's make 2015 the best year for Coolidge and for our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is call to the public, and I would say this is where you have a chance to come up and speak 3 to 5 minutes to the council. However, if you're here for item number 11, which refers to the contract for the jet fuel and the gas facility and gas tanks at the airport, I would ask that you wait until item 11 to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and staff for letting me come and speak a little bit. My name is Kevin Todd. I'm familiar with some of you, at least virtually on Facebook or other means. I work closely with Gary. I work for Southwest Ambulance here in town, pretty involved with the community. I serve on the Library Advisory Board for the City of Coolidge Library. Pretty instrumental in getting the Facebook page for the library launched. I'm here to address the council and let the council be aware that over the last week, the union representing all of us employees with Southwest Ambulance met in over 6 meetings throughout Arizona, in Pinal, Pima, and Maricopa counties to discuss the options of possibly striking and not coming to work, obviously, in support of the union because of the issues that the company has failed to negotiate with the union. Over the last 3 years, we've been trying to negotiate, trying to secure a contract, trying to make sure that our pay and our wages and our hours are secure and strong. The company has been not willing to negotiate, including we had secured a contract previously that included a pension plan funded by the employees and then later on continued to be funded by the company. The company unilaterally changed their funding policies with regards to funding that retirement plan, stopped putting the appropriate amount of money in there, and over the years that has come to about $15 or $16 million that they have not funded adequately to the fund. That $16 million has been found to have been illegally stolen from those of us that work hard every day to make sure that the communities that we serve are safe by several courts, including the National Labor Board. They ruled a number of times in our favor. The company is trying to push that all the way to the Supreme Court. We can't afford to wait that long. We want them to man up and do what they're supposed to do so that we can continue to do our jobs and feel safe and make sure the communities are safe. None of us want to strike. Absolutely none of us want to do that. We want the company to come together and negotiate with us. However, they have not been willing to do so. I've explained all of this in a 9-page document that I've posted on Facebook. You're welcome to look at. I will also email to Norma and the council should you be willing to look through that and learn a little bit more about why we're fighting for these issues. And I appreciate the opportunity to address you and hope that you know that I am here for the community along with my brothers and sisters of the union and of Southwest Ambulance. We look forward to continuing to serve the community.
Well, thank you, Mr. Todd. Let me ask you something before you walk away.
Yes.
When you say if they call a strike, does that mean there will be no ambulance service for Coolidge?
That will mean there will be no ambulance service for the city of Coolidge, all of Pinal County, most of Maricopa County, and a lot of Pima County. It will be an 800-employee-wide strike, and we hope that at least a good portion of those will join us and strike.
Okay.
And rural metro claims to be able to cover those areas if we do strike. However, I don't think they can. We've already discussed and partnered with the Professional Firefighters Association of Arizona, and they have agreed to support us so their firefighters will not cross the line, will not step up and transport patients. PMT Ambulance, another separate portion of Rural Metro Corporation in Phoenix metro area, their union representatives have all argued that in favor of us, that if we go to strike, those employees will not cross the line and work and pick up the slack. It'd be pretty nasty for the state of Arizona if Rural Metro fails to oblige by their contractual obligations and negotiate with the union. Any other questions?
Can I make a statement
No,
to
not
kind
yet.
of, no?
Mr. Fitzgibbons,
No,
do we have a contract with,
pardon me?
we have a contract with this organization? No?
We do not. I mean, it's something that has been talked about with Southwest Ambulance, and it's something that has been in the discussion, but as we sit here today, where's the fire chief? We do not have a contract.
So we will still have service provided to us if that organization chooses to cross the picket line? I mean, I'm Local 938 ex-steel worker from the mine, so nobody crossed our picket line. What I'm wondering is, if they go on strike, how does that impact the citizens of Coolidge if somebody gets sick.
I think,
and
Mr.
needs-
Mayor, we'd have to look into that and get back to you. I
Okay,
mean,
all right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
and Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear a date when that would happen.
We have not launched an official date from the time. We have all agreed, well, 150 of us showed up out of 750, 800 employees. 150 of us showed up, and 154, I think, voted in favor of striking should the negotiation process not continue. The next set of negotiations are set for February between Southwest Ambulance and Rural Metro and the union representing Southwest Ambulance. So we hope that the company will come to terms with us, but it's unlikely.
Mr. Mayor, we could, we can look into it and get information back to council.
Well, I just want to make sure that our citizens, if something goes wrong, there's something in place.
Right.
So, I'm going to start over here this time. Councilmember?
Wait, we can call the public.
Oh, okay, never mind. Then we can't respond anyway.
Right, this is a time
So,
period where we can't
These
talk.
guys all jumping at the bit, but no.
And I'm
we
more
can't
than willing to
respond.
come back during an issue if you want me to come back.
Yeah,
and
Mr.
address
Mayor,
it.
we could put it on for a council item, Mr. Mayor.
Ask him-
We can, if,
Can we ask him to state what his Facebook page is or mention that? So-
yeah, you can ask him what his Facebook page is.
Could you give us that
I think it's
information?
Kevin.Todd2, facebook.com/Kevin.Todd2. I will also email the article that I posted and
Okay.
I've been pretty proactive in making sure this gets out. I've sent it to our CEO multiple times. I've sent it to the Department of Health. Will Humble is very concerned about the possibility of this happening. He's the Director of Public Health for the state of Arizona. I'm going to go talk to Tom Schreier, which happens to be the Pinal County Public Health Director, and talk to him about it. Make sure that he's aware, make sure that the public is aware that we do not want it to come to a strike. We are adamant about wanting to get that money back, get a contract. Rural Metro's hired a lawyer from down under that yells and screams and is irate towards our union representatives during negotiation process. All of that's been recorded in court. All of that's public document, and all of that's available to be seen. Courts have ruled that they've been acting completely inappropriate and not been willing to negotiate in good faith.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for the call of the public? Seeing nobody approach, we'll move on to the business part of the agenda, consent items. I'm going to read them off, then I'm going to ask if somebody wants them pulled off to let me know before we proceed. Item number 4, consider approval of a special event liquor license application submitted by Mr. T.J. Shope for the St. James Catholic Church located at 401 West Wilson Avenue, Coolidge, Arizona, for their annual St. James Festival being held on Sunday, February 8th, 2015. Item number 5, consider approval of a special event liquor license application submitted by Ms. Lynn Parsons for the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce for their annual Cotton Days Festival being held on Saturday, February 28th, 2015. Item number 6, consider approval of entering into a second amendment to consulting agreement between Albert Holler and Associates and the City of Coolidge for supplemental tax audit services to perform an additional 10 audits in the amount of $2,800 per audit and extending the termination date to June 30th, 2015. I would ask now if any of the council members want any of these items to be pulled.
Number 6.
Okay, well, let's pull number 6. And then let's go ahead and I would see if there's a motion to approve number 4 and 5.
Move to approve number
Second.
4 and 5, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. 4 and 5 are approved. Number 6, Councilmember Huddleston, go ahead.
Who do I address, Mike? Do I address
Yes.
you with a question? What is the criteria? From what I understand, we are making an agreement to pay the Holler and Associates to go in and perform a tax audit on these different businesses. What's
Yes.
the criteria on who we pick out for what business? Why do we go in there? And
Right. Originally, we started this back, and I believe it was 2011. We are contracted with the Arizona Department of Revenue, actually, to do tax audits for us on behalf of the city. ones that they choose, looking at the monies that are being, paid in. It was decided back in 2011 that we were seeing things that were going through, taxes that were not being paid. We're not privy to all of the information because the monies are paid to Department of Revenue on our behalf, and then they are sent to us by Department of Revenue. Most of the cities do have an independent tax auditor that chooses audits based on our tax roll that comes out each month by Department of Revenue. They pick the tax audits and they perform them, at which time, if Department of Revenue does the audit, they also audit for the state and the county. So they assess city, state, and county taxes, goes through Department of Revenue, and most of those, we're not really seeing a lot on. However, Mr. Holler, up until the end of December, was able to go out and we give him the rights to our tax roll. He picks the audits, he finishes the audits, he sends them to me directly. It's for the city's portion, the 3% for the city, or 4% if it's construction sales tax. We then are able to contact that auditee and make a payment plan with them. We can choose to waive the penalty that's charged on those audits in the best interest of the city. We cannot waive the interest. I believe that Department of Revenue probably doesn't waive either. Legislation changed, and starting in January, the Department of Revenue will go back to, auditing. We can continue with Mr. Holler. He will still pick those audits where he can see that, things have not been paid appropriately. He will then, instead of sending those completed audits to me, will send them to the Department of Revenue, where they have a choice to either move on them or they may sit. It's the feeling of most of the cities and towns that Department of Revenue does not have the staff to be able to do these audits for us. We want Mr. Holler to still be able to go forward and do those audits, and then we will just have to, push forward with Department of Revenue to make sure that something happens from that point.
So there's a way that they know, we're not just picking out businesses at random?
No, absolutely not. In fact, when we first started this, the first time I brought it before council, they rejected it because they did not want us randomly just picking people to audit. No, they started with construction sales tax on the large projects that happened between 2005 and 2011, and then they moved on to different things, just things when they're looking through our tax rolls based on our permits that we issued, looking to see if people paid the proper amount of tax. So it's based on the permits we issue through our growth management department. Then they start looking at the monies that were supposed to be paid on these things, and they choose an audit from there.
Okay. Thanks.
So no, we don't randomly choose anyone in the community. Department of Revenue randomly chooses, and they have every right to do that.
Thanks.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on this item? Then I would look for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, move to approve item number 6.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in the business, under regular items, number 7. Consider approval of entering into Crash Logic agency application and an addendum between the City of Coolidge and APRES, Crash Logic for crash report managing and distribution. Welcome, Chief, and is that pronounced it APPRIS?
APRES.
APRES, okay, thank you.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, and council members. The Police Department is seeking approval from City Council to enter into a contract with APRES Crash Logic. Currently, Coolidge Police Department records staff spend approximately 75% of their time managing and distributing reports for both the public and private sector, which averages about a 5-day turnaround. By approving this item, the Police Department's Records Division will send all crash reports to APRES at the time the reports are being entered into the Police Department's in-house computer system, allowing the public immediate access to all crash reports. This will allow record staff to complete other required tasks, such as report filing, preparing criminal reports for both the city and county attorney, and UCR reporting. The public, insurance companies, and attorneys will then have 24/7 access to these crash reports. APRES charges $13 for electronic copies of crash reports. That's an $8 APRES convenience fee plus the regular $5 City of Coolidge report fee. APRIS will send the City of Coolidge a check in the amount owed for copies of crash reports. Citizens of Coolidge will still be able to request a crash report in person at the Coolidge Police Department's records window at the current City Coolidge report of $5. If there's any other questions you have, I'll be happy to answer those.
I don't have any at this point in time. This is going to help your support staff do other things.
It'll give them extra time, additional time, correct. And it still allows the citizens, nothing changes for the citizens of Coolidge if they still wish to come and get a report. It's still the same $5 that it's always been.
Okay, so there's an option.
But it's a lot faster, isn't it, Chief?
Yes, essentially as soon as they push the button and send it to APRIS, it is ready for anyone, anywhere then, to purchase it online.
Okay. Any questions down here?
No.
Over here?
Good idea.
I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve it.
Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank
Item number 8, and this is resolution, so we will be voting on this. Resolution number 15-02, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing staff to install several traffic control devices on Verde Lane, Martin Road, Clements Road, within the Los Bolas subdivision. He's got
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Susan.
Vice Mayor Henry, and council members. In our code, it requires some council action, some city manager action, some other action sometimes when it comes to some of our traffic control devices and when we post them and how we authorize the posting of those. As a security measure, we are asking that we have council, I guess, take action on any that will be a change from a condition that we have right now. We have had several citizens asking for these requests or for several traffic control devices. One of them is on Verde Lane. If you recall, Verde Lane is kind of a mobile home park just to the west of the boulevard. It has kind of a split median in between, and it's not quite clear that it's a right-hand one way and when you come back out on the other one, and several people then will weave in and out of there, creating potential problems. When the police department has been asked to go in and look to ticket because there's no signing there, they feel a little bit uncomfortable that maybe the general public doesn't understand that it is a one-way. So we've been asked to clear that up, and so we've come up with a plan to do that, and that is one of the areas that we've asked to have authorized for us to put those signs up. Another one is speed limit signs out on Martin Road and on Clemens. There was at one time anywhere from 35 to 50 to 45, depending on whether you were in the city, whether you were in the county, which direction, and what you were doing. We went out and did a speed study on that several months ago, shared that with the county, and they basically all agreed that that stretch, whether it be city or county, should end up being a 45 mile an hour based upon the way that speeding or the speeds of the traveling public were being posted or being, I guess, traveled along those routes. So we're asking that we officially sign that at 45 miles an hour. We had thought that the county was going to wait for us to do that, but they went out and went ahead and signed it themselves on their portion, so we're trying to clear that up at this point in time and move to 45 mile an hour. And then the third one is in Los Arboles. There's two T intersections when you enter into that subdivision. The citizens in that area have asked that we put a stop sign at the end of, or the beginning of that T, or where the T is at. And again, we're recommending that we go ahead and move forward with that. We do have several of these signs in stock, and so we are able to put them up and install them almost immediately upon approval, and would like to move forward with your authorization.
Okay, Suzanne, I know that number 5 and 6 in Los Arbelas is the citizens in there. When I walked through that area a few months ago, they were very unhappy about speeding in there. I don't know if these stop signs, but at least how many let me ask you something. How many people know about this other than the people that ask you to do it? I mean, if you make these changes, are you going to have a lot of citizens coming in wondering why these changes occurred?
We have checked with most of them on Verde Lane. Verde Lane is pretty active, and they are aware and have been requesting it kind of as a group of homeowners out there. The 45 mile an hour was somewhat kind of instrumented by us, as well as several of the homeowners along that route as well. The T intersection, I believe, was provided to me, or that request came from the Homeowners Association as well. So I'm not so certain that it really is going to change anything, that T intersection and Los Orbeles. In reality, the state law says if you come to a T intersection, you need to yield to that through traffic. This just kind of cements that a little bit tighter, so that's not going to change much.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
The streets that you're going to put the signs up on, does the city maintain those streets?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions on this end?
No.
Down here? Okay, I guess I need we need a roll call vote on this.
Well, I need a motion.
We need a motion first.
Need a motion to vote on this, on item number 8 on the agenda.
Move to approve resolution
Number.
15-02.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Now we need a vote.
Okay. Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9. Consider approval of lifting the freeze on the capital sales tax fund and authorize payment to the Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT, for the Cotton Express and CART Transit Plan local match. Jill?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening you do have before you a request to unfreeze the capital sales tax to allow the City of Coolidge to make payment to the Arizona Department of Transportation for our share of the match requirement for our transit plan. This year, when we applied for transit grant funding, which started on October 1 of 2014, we did submit a request for 2 transit plans, one for the Cotton Express, which is our local City of Coolidge transit program, and the second for CART, which is the Central Arizona Regional Transit, which serves as a connector service between Florence, Coolidge, Central Arizona College, and the city of Casa Grande. During the application process, ADOT was not able to fund us fully at the original request of $100,000 per plan, but came back and said if they rolled the funding together and the plans were accomplished together, would $150,000 be sufficient in total funding to complete the plan. Staff reviewed that and felt that it was sufficient, since both plans that are required are short-range plans, with one small activity under the CART, or our connector service, which would be a little bit of longer range planning as to how future entities might join that partnership. As some council members may be aware, that CART partnership has a formal intergovernmental agreement signed by the City of Coolidge, the Town of Florence, Pinal County, and Central Arizona College, and all 4 entities are responsible to come up with the match requirement for that bus service to be funded. Under the Cotton Express, the City of Coolidge comes up with the match requirement to the federal dollars, because that is the service provided in our city limits. So at $150,000 with a 20% match requirement, $30,000 would be required for this transit plan. $15,000 would come from capital sales tax from the City of Coolidge funds to cover the Cotton Express portion, and $15,000 would be funded by the CART program, who has a grant from the Gila River Indian Community Proposition 202 funds, which can be used for this activity. This evening, grant funds with the City of Coolidge are not frozen. However, capital sales tax funds are frozen, so staff is requesting your approval to unfreeze the capital sales tax and then authorize the payment to ADOT so they can procure a consultant and start the plan for us. This makes things a little bit easier. ADOT has consultants on call already. What they will do is take the scope of work for the plan, provide it to 3 to 5 consultants that they already have available. They will respond with how they will serve our needs, and then staff as well as the CART board members will review those proposals and make a recommendation back to ADOT as to who they should hire. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have this evening.
Start on there, Gil.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the amount you're asking for is $15,000.
The amount from capital sales capital sales tax is $15,000. The total payment we will make is $15,000 from capital sales tax if you choose to unfreeze it, and $15,000 from the Gila River Transit Grant.
Do we need to include the Gila River Transit Grant in
No,
the
because the
motion?
transit funds or the grant funds are not frozen.
Okay, so only the, okay.
Great.
Councilmember Hudson?
No, I don't have any questions, Mayor.
What exactly do we get with this? I mean, is this a routing they're going to...
It'll be a 5-year transit plan that basically responds to, are we delivering a good service on those two systems? What could we do to improve efficiencies? Are there route changes that should be made? Should there be changes in the fares that we charge for transit services? And then the component on Central Arizona Regional Transit will actually look at how do we grow that program in the future so that other communities can join on and pay their fair share of the match expenses. So it is a requirement of the federal funding that you have a transit plan every 5 years. Our last plan was done in 2009, so we are due for our new plan.
Down here, anybody have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Councilmember Lewis?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor? All right, then at that time I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on item number 9 to approve lifting the freeze of capital sales tax and authorize payment to Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT, for the Cotton Express and CART Transit Plan local match. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And the mayor's an aye. Okay, item number 10. Consider approval of lifting the freeze on capital sales tax fund for an amount not to exceed $500,000 to allow for the construction of the fuel tanks at the Coolidge Municipal Airport. Discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This item is a companion item to the next item on the agenda, where we start talking a little more about the necessity of undergrounding or above grounding the fuel system at the airport. In order to do that and to enter into a contract with Fry, should you choose to do that, we'd have to lift the freeze on the construction, on the sales tax for the payment of the fees to Fry for the installation of a fuel system at the airport. We've requested that not to exceed $500,000 based on the estimate that Fry has provided the city to do the work over at the airport in the amount of about $495,000 plus or minus fee. So that's what we're asking for. And this particular item is for you to lift the freeze on the sales tax to allow for us to enter into that contract. It doesn't obligate you right now to enter that contract. That's a separate item. So you could lift the freeze and then on the next item choose what you may on whether or not to proceed with that contract.
Mr. Miller, was this item budgeted for in last year's budget?
Yes, it was.
So the money's already been...
The money has been budgeted for. It was approved in the budget as a loan, that's correct, which Lisa will probably talk a little bit more in the next agenda item for you.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because if we're voting on the money, I'd like to hear about interest rates and things like that. Thank you.
As we talked about at earlier meetings, I did put out a bid request to 6 financial institutions. Those were due on the 16th of January. On the 16th, I did not receive any proposals, so that particular bid would not be able to be awarded as it was put out. However, this week and last week did receive 2 proposals, one from Bank of the West and one from MMD Financial, LLC, who have offered to fund the entire project, the removal of the old tanks and construction of the new tanks for the $495,000. The interest rates from Bank of the West are 4.43, and MMD Financial is 6.75. So I could do several things. I think, we could go forward with any one of these. You can't tonight because it's not agendized.
Can I just stop you
Yes.
for 1 minute? Do these interest rates, is there any bearing on whether those tanks are above ground or underground? Is it just
No,
the loan, the interest rate's the interest rate no
the
matter
interest rate
which?
is the interest rate.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
And so it would be up to council as to, we can't award those tonight because we don't have, they're proposals, but we don't have the paperwork yet. Should we decide to go with one of these, that would be presented to you at a later meeting. We wanted to unfreeze the capital because we would have to pay to begin this project up front and then be reimbursed from the loan. And those monies do come from capital sales tax. That's why we needed to unfreeze them.
Okay, any questions down here? How about down here?
No, sir.
All right, then I guess we're going to need a motion to approve of lifting a freeze of capital sales tax fund for an amount not to exceed $500,000 to allow for the construction of the fuel tanks at the Coolidge Municipal Airport.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
And Lisa, just for point of clarification,
Yes.
both proposals were lease purchase proposals. They weren't technically loans.
One is a lease purchase, and the other one is a term lease payment.
both are
They're
leases.
both basically the
Okay.
same. And again, all of the, information would be given to us in the actual agreements that would come before council. I guess I would like your direction on whether I should send these proposals back out to other financial institutions, or whether you would want me to propose this to you as a waive the bid process. When we did go through the bid process, but they did not turn them in by the date. If we were going to accept either one of these, we would have to waive the bid process, or we'd actually have to put them back out. And what would be your direction?
Let me ask our legal person.
Well, we're unfreezing the sales tax. I think we talked about, I think direction, if you'd like to see more proposals, we could put it back out. But I think it's just direction. I don't think it's something we're going to vote on.
Okay. Well, maybe I should, we can't vote, but I
No.
can ask.
Right. Do you
Right.
think it would be
Comment.
helpful to go out?
I really don't think it would be helpful to go out. Of the 6 that I sent out, 2 of them declined to propose on the project because of the nature. It was labor intensive, and they didn't feel like it had enough collateral. So 2 of those 6 would not bid anyway. We already have received 2 from the other 4.
Well, unless there's something terribly wrong with the one that has the least interest rate, that would be what I would choose if I was
That is our
doing it
local bank
myself.
as well.
Mayor, I got a question.
Councilmember Lewis.
On the loan request approvals of the bids that you put out,
Mhm.
was the verbiage stating that it was an underground tank, or did you tell them that we weren't sure yet?
I actually sent them the proposal from Fry. I also sent them the breakout list. And I don't believe it says.
Because the lack of collateral could probably be because it's underground, there's no collateral. So
Yeah.
I would think a bid might be different if they think it's above ground. So maybe we should go back out.
I actually think that most of the problem was removal of the old tanks.
Okay.
And there was no collateral on removing old tanks.
Okay.
And they didn't want to.
That
Now,
makes
the bid procedures would require normally that we do a sealed advertised bid, which it was not a sealed advertised bid. It was just a regular bid. If we go back before and I bring both of these proposals before you, we would just be waiving the sealed bid process.
Well, our back's already up against the wall kind of on the time limit, but I'm not, I want to get what the best deal is for the citizens, certainly. If you put it out there and you got only 2, and it's been out there a couple of times.
Right. We sent it out the one time, and of course, the 6 institutions are all of our local banks, our 3 local banks. 2 of them don't generally bid on most anything that we put out there, even our equipment. But the others are financial institutions that, we periodically hear from, and they want to bid on our projects, and then they chose not to bid on this project. So they were the ones that we knew were available out there, would most likely be the ones that would bid on something like this. And then again, 2 of them chose not to. One of them that chose to send us this proposal late was a local bank, and the other one is a out-of-state.
And I believe last time or the time before that we discussed this issue, Mr. Miller said something about there was an organization that lent money for gas tanks. Did we check the interest rate and see what, is that?
You know, the paperwork that I have for that loan process is fairly old. It's probably more than a year old. I want to say that the percentage was about 10% running. We did have a loan from ADOT, I think it was back in 1997, when we actually used the money to reline these tanks. And it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of process. But I believe it was 10%.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yeah, Lisa, Bank of the West is the bank that the city of Coolidge uses, right?
Yes.
And they have financed many pieces of equipment and other projects for us?
Yes.
And they are a local bank that does give back to the community?
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's not illegal. I don't see any reason that we should go back out, do you? I mean, we're not breaking the law if we don't.
I don't think it's a legal issue. I think we've already gone out. I think Ms. Pinellas just looking for direction. Did council want her to go out again? I think she's gone out.
Right. And when I present this to council on the bid tab sheet, I will show you the banks that it went out to and those who chose not to bid. And then we'll show the two that came in late. Again, we can't award based on that bid because none of them came in by the due date. But after that date, we did receive 2 bids, and so we'll just be waiving the bid process. But you can see on the bid tab sheet that we did seek 6 bids.
Okay. Well, in that case, I guess that's what I don't see any reason to go back out.
I don't either. I think that the difference between the 2 rates at the 6.75 and the 4.43 is $50,000 over the term of the loan. So it makes sense to, providing that the bank documentation and everything they're offering comes back to your satisfaction, then we'll bring both of them back to you on the meeting of the 9th.
Okay, thank you. So, we've already voted for this one?
Yep.
No,
We
haven't.
already voted.
I'll make a motion that we approve unfreezing the capital tax.
No, I think we voted.
I think
We voted, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, then I guess it's on to 11.
Do you want me to repeat the motion or the vote? You guys are okay? I had Vice Mayor Henry, who made the motion, Councilmember Hudson second, and it passed with 6 and 1 no by Councilmember Lewis.
Okay. That sounds about right. All right, thank you. Okay. Item number 11, consider approval of entering into a contract for jet fuel and AV gas facility construction and decommissioning of the existing fueling facility at Coolidge Municipal Airport between the City of Coolidge and Fry Construction, Inc. for the removal and reconstruction of the underground storage tanks. Okay, I'm going to call for discussion. And I guess the first thing I would do, well, Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, following our study session last Wednesday, the council decided that they wanted to go and actually view the facility on Saturday, which was that 4 of you participated in that exercise, and hopefully you've been able to see on the ground kind of what we're talking about. While we were out there, for those that weren't there, we basically talked about where the underground storage tanks would be constructed based on the plan that Fry has submitted. We also tried to illustrate for the council if they were to go above ground where the tanks are currently located underground. We tried to illustrate for the council the approximate size of the footprint that those tanks would take up, and basically they would be about 10 feet tall from the ground surface and about 27 feet long, and that's just for the 2 tanks. Of course, you might have some other, depending on fencing requirements, to make sure that people don't climb on the tanks and get in, and potentially put things in the tanks that they shouldn't be putting in there, because it is somewhat of a remote facility. There may be some other ancillary structures that need to be built around those tanks out of protection to the tank. We also talked about, I think, during the little exercise out there, another option that I think we found might be even more favorable to putting them underground, if where Fry is currently looking at, and that would be to consider potentially just shifting the tanks to the south of where they're currently underground and putting them underground in front of the FBO office where Mr. Charlie Recker has his office. Currently that is an unimproved gravel parking area. And if we were to put them there, you would save the cost of excavating the asphalt area in front of the old hangar. So there'd be some cost savings potentially there. And when these things are if they're put underground, they're put in flush with the ground, much like you see at most gas stations. You can drive across the asphalt in the parking lots in a gas station, and you'll see some manhole lids for accessing these tanks. But for the most part, you can park on them, drive on them, and there are no obstructions above the grade. So that would, be a possible option to putting them underground to the north of the existing tanks. We've had a lot of conversations in the past few weeks. Not all easy. I think we've provided you with a lot of information. I really don't know what else to provide the council. I know there's some questions that maybe we can try to answer. We're still trying to get some insurance information, and Norma can talk about that briefly. But at this point, I guess we need to figure out what we're going to do, whether they're going to be above ground or below ground. We do know that they need to come out of the ground. We are experiencing a great deal of pressure by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, considering the age of the tanks and the potential risk that they pose in their current state. So I don't think anyone's been debating the need to get them out of the ground. Our debate has been whether we put them above or below. And I think we're here tonight just to ask the council to considering all the information you've had, or if you need additional questions answered tonight, we'll do the best we can to answer questions, but to come up with a decision. On your agenda tonight is the recommendation that has been there previously is to award the contract to Fry Construction Incorporated, who would team up with Pearson Engineering and Complete Aviation Fuel Systems to construct a 15,000-gallon Jet A fuel tank and a 12,000-gallon low-lead fuel tank underground, contiguous to the existing fuel tanks that are currently located underground. I don't think it's not going to make a bit of difference whether it's north or south side of this. The design is the same, but that's what's on the agenda tonight for your review and consideration. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay. Before we take questions, Norma, did you have some information for us?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, what I wanted to share with you, at the previous meeting, a question came up whether our insurance covered any leaks for the tanks, and I just wanted to clarify that after speaking to our representative and ADEQ, it does cover that. Our policy covers taking corrective action for a sudden accidental, a non-sudden accidental, or just an accidental release. So we are covered for that. I also requested from our representative to go out and see if Liberty, which is the company that's currently insuring us for our underground tanks, could give us the cost as you directed me to go in and look, and unfortunately they were not able to provide it to me. I provided them a scope of work. I asked for estimates. Right now we're currently paying $3,300, a little over $3,300 annually to insure the underground storage tanks. And then on top of that, we also pay $4,900 for liability. That's for the anything in the operations of the airport that goes on out there, and for our buildings and so forth and so on. I'm hoping that our rep will get that information to you. As soon as I do, I can forward it on. I was hoping to have it for you tonight, but unfortunately I do not have those figures, so they could not provide them to me. I think it was just short notice. So, and I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't know what to tell you, so it's unfortunate. I don't know what more information you want to share, Rick. I mean, I think you try to get a hold of other cities.
I tried to contact some other jurisdictions today. I did call Payson, talk to the Public Works Director in Payson. They took some underground storage tanks out of the ground about 15 years ago and replaced them with above ground storage tanks. Asked them if they had any issues or concerns or problems with the above ground, and indicated they hadn't had any problems with the above ground. They had problems with the old tanks, the same problems that we have. His concern was the daily monitoring, the manual gauging of these tanks, which we currently have, that we wouldn't have with the new system that's being proposed. He understands that that is a better system, and you wouldn't have the monitoring concerns that we have today. But he did say, I asked him about insurance. He said that they currently pay $3,690 per year. But he didn't say, he said that's all inclusive of everything. He said that wasn't just for the tanks, that's the airport in general. And it was a late question to him. I didn't talk to the clerk or the persons that, were really in the know of whether or not that's, you said it was a rider, their airport facilities are a rider to their insurance, and they paid $3,690. I contacted Casa Grande. I didn't get any information from them. I'm trying to find out some other ones, but that's all I can give you on insurance.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to ask you the questions, but we made on the call of the public. Is there anybody here that wants to speak 5 minutes to this issue before the council has a discussion? No? Okay. Then, Mr. Miller, you're on. Does anybody have any questions? I'll start down here with Councilmember Lopez.
See, I did have I guess also the insurance, but I would think once we get this replaced, no matter what, the insurance rate probably will go down, because right now we're paying for the liability of having those old tanks. So that's potentially, like you said, the other airport it's $3,600 for the whole thing. I know I was at a meeting with the league and we were talking about insurance for league buildings, and it was that whole issue of how old they are and all that. Right. So I would hope that once we replace these, the insurance, one way or another, the insurance rate will go down because they're no longer a liability.
Correct.
So.
And, Mayor Thompson and Councilmember Lopez, I think staff feels the same way. We're just not, we're not sure. We're
sure.
I think because of the type of the new tanks, the construction of them, and then the technology that they're going to have to measure, I think you're absolutely right. So that's a good point.
All right. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Hudson?
No, I don't have any questions or anything. I just know that this thing was approved and budgeted by the previous council. And I know that there's 3 new council people that are on here, but there's a lot of things over the years that have been voted on previously that this council is having to live with to begin with. And I think we should move forward with what the previous council voted on.
Anything else? Is that it? Okay. Councilman Rob? Nothing? Councilperson Mariana?
No, nothing.
Councilmember Lewis?
I don't have any questions for Rick that we haven't answered already.
Okay. Vice Mayor? Well, Mr. Fitzgibbons, if there was members of this council that wanted to know, if we vote for this, the way it's written, they're going underground. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the current contract with Fry, the scope of work has the tanks going underground.
The initial bid was for an above ground, though.
Well,
but
yeah.
it was about the location, right?
Right.
Correct?
My understanding was the RFQ talked about the tanks being above ground. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I think that if council wanted the tanks above ground, I think council wanted to approve the Fry contract. I mean, I think council could approve the contract and give Bob authority to go and get a new scope of work from Fry with a new estimate on what it would cost, and as long as that was within whatever percentage council was comfortable with, then we could go with that new scope of work.
I have no way of knowing. I mean, I've obviously sat through some of the conversations, and I've heard that if I was a betting person, I would bet certain people would vote a certain way on this. If we take this for a vote and it gets beat the way it is, can we rephrase it tonight, or do we need to put it on another agenda item for another time?
No, I mean, I think we're talking about fuel tanks, and I think council has the authority under this agenda item. I mean, if this contract as is with this scope of work to place them underground isn't acceptable, but the alternative to place it above ground would be acceptable to council, then I think you could you could amend the contract and give us authority to go out and get a different scope of work from Fry. if the contract is acceptable and it's just the scope of work you want to see is different, and as long as the different work wouldn't increase the cost.
I think the main issue, as everybody sitting up here and out there probably knows by now, is above ground or below ground. And I guess my question is if we vote on this tonight and it passes, then it's a done deal anyways. But if it doesn't pass,
Right, if you vote on what's before you tonight, which is this contract with the scope of work as the tanks being placed underground.
okay. So, and once it's done, right? Hold on, Gil. Mr. Lewis?
You had mentioned going out for the bid with Mr. Fry again or having him change the scope. I believe he said last meeting we had, probably about 3 or 4 times, because he was asked a bunch of times, that the price to do underground and above ground is relatively the same and wouldn't really change much. So I don't think that is a huge concern on my part.
Okay. Yeah,
I know we would have to probably do it for...
What did you say?
You had mentioned that we'd have to go back to him to get a new bid for the scope of work.
No, new scope
change.
of work is what I meant. I meant if you look at the contract in your packet, the contract identifies as an Exhibit A the scope of work, and that scope of work says exactly what Mr. Fry will do and the cost for him to do that. So if your belief is that the scope of work the price wouldn't dramatically increase, and we wanted to resolve this tonight, you could approve the contract, I think, as is, but modify the scope of work and authorize Bob to sign the contract with a new scope of work that puts the tank underground, as long as the price didn't increase.
Okay. Yeah, I believe Mr. Fry said it was the same. So
Okay, and Councilmember Lopez?
Yes, sir. I thought I know the above ground, below ground issues out there, but I think that the issue is the timeline, and that we're up against, as the mayor said, up against the ropes. We have to do something as soon as possible because ADQ is expecting us to do that. We've already taken the action to put these underground before. I'm worried about the time, and then the fact that if you move them to another location, then it's the environmental review process kicks in. So we're looking at a year later. We can't wait a year. If we put them where they are, then you got to pull those tanks. It's going to take a long time. There's no fuel. You got to bring trucks in. So if we put them underground in front of the office, it's just a matter of you're down a week and a half to swap the lines, and that's it. And I mean they're out of sight, out of mind. They don't impact the historic nature of the hangar. And so I think the timeline and the environmental review process is what really is my concern. I mean, if we had all the time in the world and it didn't matter, I would say put them in the back and away from that apron where the plane can't hit them, and put a fence around them or put them in a vault. But that's not the case. I mean, it's the location, the timeline, the fact they could leak. I think that's the problem. So I would want to move forward the way it is, so we can take care of the issue, because that's the way it's designed right now. So you're basically starting over again if you decide to go above ground. So.
Okay. Anybody else down here?
Well, would you say that we're starting over again based on, because I want to be clear when we vote, are we going to be based on this contract as put forth with no addendums as to changing the scope, or?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Huddleston, I don't know what it would take for Mr. Fry. That's not something I've asked him. I mean, from a legal perspective, all I'm looking at is the contract and the scope of work. I assume as to get to this price, I mean, he was the contractor that was selected, and then the next stage is for him to make designs, which he has made designs. I don't know how those designs would change or how much time would be involved if he had to change those designs. I didn't ask him. I mean, I have not asked him that.
Right.
From a legal perspective, for me, it's just changing the scope of work. But I assume he'd have to change design because he didn't design it for underground.
The initial one was underground.
yeah, the initial design was above ground.
Mr. Miller?
I think Mr. Councilmember Lopez really hit what I was going to say a while ago. Is that this project has not been designed completely. We've got some standard details that are used pretty much in the industry. If you look at the scope of work, he attached some exhibits that can be used, whether it's here in Coolidge or in Payson or another similarly situated area. So I don't think that they've gone out and done significant engineering design work at this point. They will commence with that to get the proper permits through the jurisdictions that are required to review this, including the State Fire Marshal's Office and other jurisdictions. But we haven't really gone into a design phase other than just some conceptual standard details.
So it's really scope, then it's more my concern as the city attorney, which would be we just want him to modify his Exhibit A, his scope of work with a new price.
And if I may, just briefly, as Councilmember Lopez was saying, he did say that there's not a lot of difference between going above ground and below ground. He said that at a couple and to me as well. The issues that we're dealing, as was mentioned, is timing and the cost of not having any fuel out there for a period of time. We have to have fuel to keep this airport going and serving the customers. So that's not factored into his cost. The cost of a truck, the cost of somebody to fuel that out of that truck, they have to be certified. And so there are some other costs that are probably going to make it go up a little bit over what is being proposed. I don't have that estimate right now, but I can't say that they're going to be exactly the same.
Okay, anybody have anything else? In that case, we've met 3 times on this. We've got, some of us have gone to the airport, others have been there numerous times. The motion number 11 is consider approval of entering into a contract for jet fuel, AV gas facility construction, and decommissioning of the existing fueling facility at Coolidge Municipal Airport between the City of Coolidge and Fry Construction, Inc. for the removal and reconstruction of the underground storage tanks. And at this point in time, if there's a motion to be made, I'm looking for it to be made.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve it as considered as presented, the underground storage tanks.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of this motion going forward?
Aye.
Nay.
Is that an aye?
Oh, she's jumped the gun.
Oh, okay. There's two in favor and all opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. So it looks like this won't pass this way tonight. So where do we go from here?
I think council can give us direction to meet with Mr. Fry and get a new scope of work, and just bring it back. I mean, is the direction of council to go with underground or above ground tanks?
Well, we haven't voted on that, and we can't really, I don't think we have the direction right now, but you can tell by the vote that they don't want underground.
And we know to put them behind the building.
Well,
was
I don't
like
know
$1 million.
where the location is yet to be determined. I think part of the problem is, and I know EDQ was here, Arizona EDQ was here for the removal or decommissioning. So I think that probably we need to start moving towards that right now, because I notice in reading through the insurance and some of these things that we even need to give the insurance company 10 days in written notice prior to doing anything. So if they so choose, they can have somebody at the site all the time if they want. So there's a number of things that are going to fall into this. I don't know what else to say. I mean, we've gone through the agenda item. There was the vote. I think you have 5 votes. They can speak for themselves, but the way I interpret it is they don't want underground tanks. So where do we go from here?
And that's my question, Mr. Mayor. Would you like us to work with Mr. Fry to get a new scope of work that has above ground tanks?
I think at this point in time, that's probably the way to proceed. And I don't have any problems with Mr. Fry. He went through the process once, and it's my understanding that they had one for an above ground tank, except the question was the location of the tank.
Right.
So, that would be.
So if we could get a new scope
And-
of work for Mr. Fry that
And I-
showed an above ground tank for the next council meeting.
That would be fine, and I don't think anybody here is interested in paying. I know Mr. Miller's mentioned $100 or $150,000 for an environmental that lasts over a year. I don't think we're interested in that either. So
I'd never received a price. That was just a comment made by one of the our Kimley Horn, our consultants at the airport. They have an environmental specialist that said it can cost as much as $100,000 and take more than a year. So that's why we were kind of shying away from trying to locate it in another part of the airport.
Yes, sir.
And I also, I'm really concerned about the impact of those above-ground tanks on the historic nature of that hangar. Because didn't we use federal money at all? We never put federal money in that hangar?
No.
Okay, so is it historically designated or not? It's not, so it doesn't. Okay, so, but it hasn't been designated. Okay,
Yeah.
that changes
Mayor?
it, 'cause it doesn't. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Any,
Yeah.
Councilmember Lewis?
The company that's going to put in the tanks above ground or underground, wherever they're going to go, apparently, Fry Construction, they did the one in Wickenburg recently, and to my understanding, they put those tanks on skids, or like giant skis. And the reason they did that is because Wickenburg plans on moving them in 2 years for changes to their airport. If there's concern with the tanks being where they're at and there's going to be possible confusion with historical buildings or not, an option to put them on skids is not off the table and can be easily moved if the airport grows, if we need to move them for some reason, which will be probably a lot cheaper to move an above ground item than an underground to begin with. But I don't think the concern of where they're at in the historical building, until we know for sure if we're going to put skids or not, is kind of a moot point from where I stand.
So would council want to see two scopes? I mean, a scope of work for above ground, a scope of work with skids, or what would council want to see?
I think what he's saying, and if they go above ground, in all likelihood, they will be installed on skids on a concrete pad, similar to what they did in Wickenburg. These tanks are bigger than the ones that they put in Wickenburg, quite a bit bigger. So aesthetically, as we mentioned, they probably aren't going to look very good out there where they would have to go. The other thing is that we are going to have some downtime as they take out the existing tanks, install this new system. You're probably looking several months without having any gasoline out there unless they bring in some temporary tanks on skids to provide that service, or a fuel truck to provide that service to the businesses that are out there. And of course there's an expense to that as well.
Well, I think we need to look into that, because there was a guy sitting back there where Mr. Henry's sitting, or adjacent there, that came in the last meeting and said that, yeah, Mr. Gallegos, that said that they'd be willing to bring a truck out and not charge us anything for 6 months. So, I mean, maybe we ought to look into things like that. So.
Yeah. He was with World Fuel. He had a lot of good information.
Well, I mean, and Mr. Recker has a lot of connections. I mean, it's in everybody's best interest that we continue to have gas. There's no doubt about that. But anyway, I think this is something we can probably discuss.
One
The
thing
staff can discuss.
One thing I heard you say, decommissioning the tanks need to take place quickly to get them out of the ground. Of course, that's not in the scope right now. What we have is a replacement. Dennis, I don't know if we need to do a separate scope to decommission the tanks and get them going on that, at least
It's in this motion to decommission them.
but to install new tanks, decommission and install. So I guess my question, Dennis, maybe is, do we need to have a different scope for them to go ahead and get the removal going?
I think we probably need to get with Fry. I mean, does council want to just see another scope of work that has the above-ground tanks on it? Because that's going to be part of the decommissioning of the old tanks.
Yeah, we want to take the old ones out of the ground and find out what it's going to cost and how we're going to go about putting an above-ground tank in the way it looks.
Okay, so we can cover that
Mhm.
in a new scope of work with Fry.
Yeah, and thank you. Anything else? All right, in that case, a report from the mayor, council, and/or city manager. We'll start down there with Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. The governor's budget just came out, so we've been looking at it. The legal is sending out information. I think Bob forwarded some. I was in a budget meeting with the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. We're looking at some of those items, and there was also a conference. So you get a chance to on Mondays at 10 a.m. you could listen in on the conversations. They talk about bills that are out and they go really fast. So there's some bills that would impact the state of Arizona as a whole, but also Coolidge, because there's a bill out there to not allow cities to tax rentals, rental housing, and so we don't think it'll get any traction. but I don't think it has a lot of support. But that's one we're looking out for because it'll impact us. We charge in a lot of cities that charge for rentals because of their impact on cities as far as how they're kept, code enforcement, all that good stuff. And some other bills like that, so we'll keep our eyes open on that. And then just in general, I got reappointed to the National League of Cities Economic Development Committee. So I got notified just recently, so that's good. I can still present the city in economic development issues at the national level if council chooses. So.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hudson?
I don't have anything yet.
Councilmember? Councilmember Marietta?
I have nothing.
Okay, Councilmember Lewis?
If I could, am I allowed to, we had the gentleman earlier talk about the Southwest and the strike issue. Am I allowed to provide information on that or talk about that at all?
It's typically a time to give reports of meetings you attended and...
Well, I did attend a meeting in reference to that, so...
Okay, if you did attend a meeting in reference to that, go ahead.
You know, I kind of want to put at ease to some people's feelings because, you know, the gentleman earlier kind of, in my opinion, probably scared a few people. I did attend the meeting for the Union for Southwest Ambulance, and the issue is the union is fighting with a company over negotiations on pension and longevity pay. The union has not had a contract with a company for approximately 3 years now, and business has been status quo. Nothing's really changed. There is about 800 employees. Around 100 or so showed up to these meetings. Out of the 800 employees, there's only about 300 union members. And the ones that did show up to the meeting, they voted to authorize the union president to have the power of a strike in his negotiations. When the company found out that these meetings were occurring, they immediately approached the union to start negotiations. In my opinion, the union's being kind of bullheaded in some issues, but that's my opinion. I can assure you that if a strike does happen, you're only going to have about 60 people who strike, and the majority of everybody else will work as usual. The union has expressed no concern if you return to work. They're not going to fine the employees or members of the union if they do cross the picket lines and go to work because they understand we have bills to pay, we have citizens to protect, and they fully expect 90% or more of the staff to actually go to work. Rural Metro does have a contingency plan. They have multiple companies. As a member of Southwest and a member of this council, I do not feel that the city is in any jeopardy of losing coverage. If I did at any moment, it would be brought up to, you know, city staff and the mayor and the rest of the council. So I just want to, you know, based on the meetings I've been to, I just want, you know, the citizens to rest assured that they're going to be taken care of. There is no strike at this point. It's just the power to say, let's negotiate or we're going to strike. It's just a tactic. The union president is actually against the strike. It's just a tool to try to get negotiations moving because they have more expensive lawyers than we have. So it just takes some power on our side to get it. But again, based on the meetings I've attended, the city of Coolidge is in no way in danger of losing coverage, regardless if, you know, the city has a contract with them or not, and everything will be handled accordingly. So, and that's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I attended the Bluegrass Festival at the fairgrounds. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And also the Elvis performance at the Performing Arts Center. And let me tell you, he was good. He does an excellent job.
And the crowd was spectacular.
Yeah, they said, I talked to Lynn today, and there was over 400 people.
That's beautiful.
Wow, that's good.
Yep.
That it?
He's alive.
Yeah, he is. He was in Coolidge.
He's in Coolidge.
Yeah.
And
He has the same
thanks,
moves, too.
I bet he does.
thanks, Jackie, for sitting at the front table taking tickets. So, thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I would, there's a couple of things. I had my first office day at the city, actually judicial court right next to the bathroom, in a fine place that the city manager put me, which I will thank him for one day. But I had my first meeting, office day there, and there were a lot of people that showed up. I was kind of surprised, but I thank them all for coming, and they weren't all my relatives. And so, secondly, Friday we met with, the city manager and myself met with Congresswoman Kirkpatrick here in Coolidge. and Rick Miller was there, and we discussed economic development here, and we showed her what we were doing, and we visited some local businesses, and then off she went to Florence. So we are getting some play from, she did assure that she would help us in whatever we needed here. So, and in that, I will turn it over to you, Bob.
Okay, we've got a number of happenings before we meet again on February 9th. Starting with the tomorrow, we'll have the Coolidge Economic Development Committee meeting at North School at 11:30. We have an Industrial Development Authority meeting at 5 o'clock tomorrow in the Growth Management Conference Room. CAG has a regional council meeting on in Apache Junction on Wednesday, and Mayor, you're going to stay on that.
Yes, I am. Yeah,
So,
they keep serving me papers. I can't leave them.
So we'll go to that on next Wednesday. Next Saturday is another wonderful performance at the Performing Arts Center, and that's Arvel Bird. Arvel had performed at the Ruins Music Fest, and he's a Grammy Award-winning artist, a Native American, Juilliard School of Music graduate, and also our symphony is going to play with him. So that'll all be at 7 o'clock next Saturday at the Performing Arts Center. So hopefully we'll get a good crowd for that. Cowboy Days and Pony Express, they're coming by City Hall on Friday next week around 10:30. The Gourd Festival is that weekend, the 6th, 7th, and 8th at the fairgrounds. We have a fly-in on the 7th. And of course, St. James Fiesta is Sunday the 8th from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 at night. And Cotton Days. So it's going to be pretty busy time until we meet again.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have anything else? In that case, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Is there
Second.
a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you for coming, everybody.